Howdy, folks. Welcome to So Bad It's Good. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Friday episode. You have made it through another week whenever, wherever you're listening. We are so thrilled that you are here today, even though we have to talk about Real Housewives of Orange County. Oh, make it end. Make it end. I would rather have gout in both feet and my penis rather than this season keep going, and yet it will keep going until the end of time. Now, don't worry. Even though I've been down on this season, I think we're still having fun. We're still having fun recapping this season, and there are tons of fun moments. I mean, Shannon Beador being the next Cheech and Chong, that's always fun to watch. She's like the Big Lebowski. You know, Shannon's like the dude, you know. The Shannon abides, man. You don't get it. And we had a big revelation, perhaps the biggest revelation all season, is that Heather Dubrow does not fart. Heather Dubrow was very brave to admit that is not her thing. Farting is not her thing. And I like that she said it almost kind of like the rest of the ladies, that is their thing. You know, it's like, unlike you ladies, I don't fart. And also, isn't it getting a little ridiculous that every time they do a scene with Heather and Terry, we go to Beverly Hills? Like, Heather at this point is begging to get on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Like, she's just like, I won't even make the drive. I won't even make the drive to Orange County. I'll go to Amsterdam and but like, I'm mainly going to film in Beverly Hills. It gives this kind of, je ne sais quoi, this kind of worldly, I'm seeing all of California when I watch Heather Dubrow on this show. I don't know, you guys. We'll have fun with it. And I'm going to talk some pop culture stories today, just so I can talk about something other than Orange County. But as always, and if you are a new listener to this show, I put timestamps in the show notes. And they're pretty basic. It'll be like, show opening, me rambling on for a couple minutes, and then like pop culture stories. And then I'll put a time stamp where it starts for the actual recap. So just use those. If you're on YouTube, I'm not sure if Maritza puts those timestamps, but you can always go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and those timestamps should be there. So don't want to yuck your yum. And if you're not here for anything else other than the OC recap, that is there for you. How are you guys? I feel like even though I've checked in with you all week, I feel like I haven't really checked in. What's going on? How is the health good? Is the family good? Do you have any, if you're not married yet, do you have any dates this weekend? Is there any BBQs? I almost thought I was like, hey, we're at the beginning of the summer. And I'm like, no, we're near the end of October. We're almost at the end of the year. The weather's getting colder. It's Maritza and Sandra, who I work with, we were just texting about the holiday card. Because like on Patreon, we send out these holiday cards every year. And I think we came up with one potentially pretty quickly, because usually it is, we wait a second, like inspiration takes a while to hit, but I think we came up with one. And BravoCon, I should have an announcement, I think tomorrow, about the So Bad It's Good meetup that is shaping up to be really fun. So hopefully you can add that hour and a half to come say, hey, we can meet up, we can have a drink, we can talk shop, we can talk Bravo. So I'm really excited for BravoCon this year. I'm kind of nervous, right? Like these things, they're big. It's a lot of things coming at you at once. Not just Bravo celebrities, but all the activations and all the people that you meet. And then you leave 3 days later exhausted, but having had the time of your life. And I swear to God, this isn't a commercial for them, even though it sounds like a commercial. But I think as we get older, and as I get older, and older and older, and I'm on the precipice of being a father for the first time ever, I have to remind myself to enjoy these things, is to like, hey man, it might not be like this for a long time. So really leave it all on the dance floor. And I don't mean leave it all on the dance floor like, oh my God, go get super hammered. No, just enjoy this. And I think that's the thing about life, right? Is I learn to enjoy the experiences, to appreciate things, to be thankful for things, because I think, I get so stressed out about all of these things and everything's coming at me like at all different angles. And, sometimes I don't handle stress very well. And then you look back at it years later and you're like, God, if I had only if I had only appreciated that moment, or, just given myself permission to be happy in those moments. Wow. Now I feel like we're at a therapy session and you guys didn't sign up for this. Anywho, today was a long day. Woke up early, did Jeff Lewis live. That was a little intense. You never know what you're walking into, with Jeff Lewis live. It is like a reality TV show, that radio show. And today there was I don't need to get into it, but if you are a Jeff Lewis listener, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What up, chumps? We did at the very tail end of the show talk about the baby shower. We're having a baby shower coming up, I guess, in a couple of months now. And guys, I can't even express to you how trippy this is. How trippy this is. And each day I'm just really thankful and scared. Do you guys, the parents out there listening, I know we primarily have a 16 to 18-year-old audience, but if there's any parents listening, were you scared shitless? Like when you had your first kid, what were the thoughts going through your head? Did you have doubt? Did you just go full steam ahead? Were you oblivious? What did you wish you had known going into this? And I'm not looking for messages of don't do it. Just run as fast as you can. But these things, Dad, I keep going over it in my head of like, Dad, I know we've probably talked about this before, but what do I need to know as a father? What do I need to do? How do I do this? And that is so weird. And then obviously you think about Becky, my mom, Becky Bailey, rest in peace, gone 2 years and 2 months. Not that I'm counting you guys. And she would have been and will be, I guess, the greatest grandmother ever. And I think part of there's that little tinge of sadness that I will not be able to see her be a grandmother to our child, because she was just somebody that loved so fiercely and really would do anything for you. So basically I just am sad that we're missing forced labor. No, it's one of those things. And she's one of those people, growing up, I think you always kind of pick that parent that you would really open up with potentially about your fears and all that stuff. And she was one of those where I would be able to have heart to hearts with, and just be like, what do I do in this situation? Or how do I do this? And I think, that has been definitely something missing from my life over the last couple of years. And you try to hear her voice, kind of like a little Star Wars reference that might go over people's heads, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like Luke Skywalker would still hear him after he passed away. Sorry, spoiler alert, Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't make it. But he would still hear his voice. And so that's the thing, is just trying to tune in my mom's voice as we get closer and closer, of what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. And yeah. So anyways, those are the thoughts going through my head while I watch Real Housewives of Orange County. What's going through your head? During the Salt Lake City recap yesterday, we had breaking news that the McBee dynasty got picked up for a 3rd season. Now, this is a show I recommend. I came to it very late. But I did really, we started like halfway through the 2nd season, and then we went back and watched the whole 2nd season, and then Rebecca even liked it, and we went back and watched the whole 1st season. So I was happy that it got a 3rd season. But today they sentenced the father, Stephen McBee Sr. Remember, he was up on all of these charges for fraud. Well, he was sentenced to 24 months in prison, and he has to pay $4 million. And what this was a crop insurance fraud case. Move over, Dr. Wendy. We've got Stephen McBee Sr. in class today. So yeah, this is his sentence. This was in Kansas City, Missouri. So 24 months in prison and another 2 years on supervised release thereafter. McBee must self-surrender before 2 p.m. on Monday, December 1st. So he will be able to spend, I guess, Thanksgiving with his family. My question is that some of the McBee Dynasty cast will be at BravoCon, and Stephen McBee Sr., will he be at BravoCon? Because this would be, I don't know if you're allowed to travel across state lines, but I was like wondering if he will be there. Now, cameras have picked up on season 3, so I'm assuming that they got Stephen McBee Sr. being sentenced and the aftermath, because if I was a reality show producer, and remember, Jeff Jenkins Productions is the production company behind this, they also do The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So 2 really good shows that I enjoy out of that production company. But if I was them, I would be thinking about, we start the season there. We start the season there, and then it unfolds. And, obviously $4 million is a lot of money to pay. And the part of the storyline was that could they keep the farm? They were in desperate need of money, and think about it, it's got to be worse than ever just because of the tariffs. They do, one of their major crops is soybeans, and soybean production is up, but then being able to sell it is way down because of China and the tariffs. So farmers are being hit so hard right now. I mean, a lot of the country is being hit so hard, but I wonder, and I don't wonder, I think this will definitely play a role in a storyline this season. So the good news is, I guess if you are the McBee family, that this gentleman was facing 30 years in federal prison without parole. Prosecutors had asked that he be sentenced to 41 months in prison, followed by 3-year supervised release, and pay $4 million in restitution, along with a $3.1 million money judgment, which the government argued represents the defendant's gain from criminal conduct. So this got he got barely, nowhere near 30 years. So according to a Department of Justice press release, the McBee farming operations owners admitted to making a false report to Rain and Hail, a company reinsured by the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation, and confessed to sending fraudulent documents to Rain and Hail that underreported his total 2018 corn crop by approximately 674,812 bushels and underreported his total 2018 soybean crop by approximately 155,833 bushels. The falsified reports allowed McBee to receive $2,605,943 in federal crop insurance benefits, in addition to $552,980 in federal crop insurance premium subsidies. In total, he received over $3,158,000 in unauthorized benefits per the release. The government said they lost through this deal $4 million, and that's the exact amount of his restitution. What I have a curiosity about here was that it said the McBee farming operations owners admitted to. So who else is an owner? Is Stephen McBee Jr., who does run a lot of these operations? Was he aware of this? This is all on the shoulders of Stephen McBee Sr. And, was this he obviously took the fall, but I do wonder how many other people knew. Did Galina know? Galina, Russian whore prostitute. Galina is one of the best reality show characters that I've seen in recent memory. And if you watch McBee Dynasty, you will understand. But I do wonder how many other people knew about the falsified documents. So we will see. Now, this kind of bummed me out a little bit. Stephen McBee Jr. was on the podcast a couple of months ago to promote the McBee Dynasty. And we were watching it, and we were really into it, like I said, and they had this kind of condo in Nashville. And I was like, I think I started the interview going, hey, what's going on with that condo in Nashville? You got to stay away from there. Too many wild parties happen. And Stephen McBee Jr. said, we just sold that condo, so no more parties in Nashville. And then I guess the McBee family has their own podcast. And 2 weeks ago, he said that he went on some podcast and he wasn't thinking and said that they sold, that it was sold. And I guess it was an escrow, and the buyer heard the podcast, which is my podcast, heard the podcast and canceled the deal. So it did not sell. And then I guess BravoTV.com did an article and flat out named my podcast, which is, I guess, great, but I hate to be associated with something negative for somebody else. Not that I didn't say anything or ask anything wrong, but I talked to Stephen McBee Jr. the other day, or we DM'd, And I just said, hey, man, if that was a problem, you should have had me cut it out of the interview or had the Bravo rep. But, he was just like, no, we couldn't have known. But I loved that he was just like some podcast, because they do so many of these podcasts that I am kind of some podcast to him. But damn it, we're here. Do not come to me with your housing news. I will potentially ruin it for you. Hoping to be a storyline in season 3 of the McPhee Dynasty. But listen, he did something wrong. He is going to prison. He's going to serve his time. I am curious then, Dr. Wendy, what is the next step in that? And will she have to serve prison time as well? Only time will tell. Also, in Vanderpump Rules news, the reboot is coming upon us. Now, it was originally scheduled, I believe, to air October 29th, if I'm not mistaken. We did a BravoCon episode a couple weeks ago about all the panels, and there is a Watch the Premiere of Vanderpump Rules event at BravoCon this year. But I was like, wow, BravoCon is like November 17th, and the show will already have aired. Well, Bravo has pushed back the release of Vanderpump Rules, so people at BravoCon, we will be the first people to watch the pilot episode of the reboot, and I don't think it will hit everybody's screens until December. And I that's really smart, because we would have been in full promotion swing by this point. So it looks like December we will get the new Vanderpump Rules. Hey folks, we are here to talk about our friends at Quince once again. If you can see me right now, I'm wearing a beautiful navy sports jacket that I did get from Quince. And don't worry, I am prepping for my BravoCon trip in November. I just purchased a beautiful leather jacket from Quince, but they don't just have clothes. Remember, they have bedding, bath, cookware, travel accessories, the whole 9. So, as the weather cools, we're all swapping pieces that actually get the job done, warm, durable, and built to last. And Quince, they deliver every time with wardrobe staples that'll carry you through the season. Now, Quince has all kinds of fall staples you'll actually want to wear on repeat, like your boy Ryan, like 100% Mongolian cashmere from just $60, classic fit denim, and real leather and wool outerwear that looks sharp and holds up. Now, I've got my eye on this suede trucker jacket. It's perfect for layering and just looks really casual, but put together. And you can go to their website and they'll show you all of these things and how they look. Now, how do they do this? They partner directly with ethical factories and top artisans. Quince cuts out the middleman to deliver premium quality at half the cost of similar brands. So, layer up this fall with pieces that feel as good as they look. Go to quince.com/sobad for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. So that is QUINCE.com/sobad. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/sobad. In further Bravo news, Jennifer Lopez was on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen this week. And Andy, he took a big swing and he said, listen, the Bravo audience will kill me if I do not ask you this question. This is from a Page 6 article entitled Jennifer Lopez finally responds to rumors of Alex Rodriguez and side chick Madison LaCroix. So Andy asked about the rumors that Rodriguez allegedly communicated with Southern Charm star Madison LaCroix while the former couple was engaged. And Jennifer Lopez heard the question from Andy, and Andy said, it came up at a Southern Charm reunion a few years ago that your ex A-Rod was DMing one of the cast members, and there was a lot of speculation in the press or on the show that somehow led to your breakup. Is there anything you can speak to about that? The audience cheered and clapped, and Lopez clapped too and replied, yes, supports, yes. And then she paused and said, I really have nothing to say about my personal life anymore. I feel like I'm done with that. But Jennifer Lopez is such a star. She was smiling the whole time. She was glowing. And so we didn't get a full answer, but that's like, I don't know about the glory days of Southern Charm, but that was wild. Remember that reunion? Craig was in like this weird Argyle outfit and he was like tanked. Craig had a few too many and he was just like letting it rip. And Craig threw out there the DMs from like a major baseball player. And then after the season 7 reunion aired, LaCroix confirmed she communicated on Instagram with a married baseball player who reached out to her, but denied that she flew to Miami to hook up with him. She said, he contacted me and yes, we DM'd, but other than that, there was nothing. I've never seen him or touched him. LaCroix later alleged it was Rodriguez who messaged her on co-star Austin Kroll's podcast, Pillows and Beers. She said, I'm being fucking catfish. The dude who's dating Jennifer Lopez is not in my DMs right now. I told Rodriguez, I said, if you're looking for a side chick, which clearly he was, it wasn't going to be me. I'm wifey material. Kroll, who was dating LaCroix at the time that she allegedly corresponded with Rodriguez, Madison, recalled that the retired athlete kept on FaceTiming you ad nauseum. So Austin's dating Madison, and she keeps getting FaceTimes from Alex Rodriguez while he is with Jennifer Lopez. Kroll said, you were like, this motherfucker FaceTimed me 3 or 4 times today. And then he like got mad at Madison because she didn't answer when she was on a boat or something. And she was like, I'm not at your beck and call. Rodriguez's rep denied LaCroix's claims. The rep said her 15 minutes of fame are up and she is trying to get a 16th minute. Please stop wasting everyone's time with these false narratives. They were false 2 years ago and continue to be false. Bullshit. Bullshit. These are completely real. It's ridiculous that a rep would deny it, and I guess Madison probably has better things to do with her day than fight this. But man, the Bravo audience does not forget. Because remember, that's what led us back to Ben Affleck. That's what was the craziest thing. It was then we started getting Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez hanging out again, which led to their marriage and now then to their divorce. And then she's on Watch What Happens Live. So I thought that was interesting. And the Bravo connection of it all is truly amazing. You know, I mean, we talk about movie stars a lot on this podcast, and you know, Jennifer Lopez is, you know, we talk about like the last movie stars, and I think Timothée Chalamet in some ways is one of our last kind of movie stars in how we used to think about movie stars. You know, Jennifer Lopez and the glitz and the glam, and I just think the world is so different, and we are so we're such an influencer culture now that I think it has done away with some of the establishment in terms of how we looked at like movie stars and TV stars and musicians. It's really trickled down through all arts and entertainment. I mean, reality TV stars have done that as well. I mean, the rise of reality TV stars and influencer culture has, I think, really chipped away at movie stars. Yeah, we got deep. We went there. We got deep. Moving on to Real Housewives of Miami, the season ended tonight with the 3rd part of the reunion. I talked last Friday about how amazing I thought part 2 of the reunion was because of the Julia Adriana of it all, about them hooking up in the Hamptons. We got a Haitian mortician brought into the mix. I mean, so many things just exploded in the second part. Now, the 3rd part, unfortunately, they did not go back to the Haitian mortician at any point. You know, it was such a high, and it's really hard if there's a surprise like that. They've already got scheduled things that they want to talk about, that Andy's going to cover. And so that's a big curveball. I was kind of hoping that they would revisit it, but we didn't get it revisited. Now, it was still interesting. You know, the Larsa-Lisa relationship, that kind of was a little bit of the focus. And Larsa went and apologized to Jody, Lisa's dude. You had an Alexia Marisol twins bit, you know, that they think alike. Stephanie spoke up a lot and said Marisol made her feel bad about sending all the negative press about her. It was good. I mean, Gertie was interesting. Like, they really focused on the Gertie stuff the first part of the reunion, and I think it almost felt like Andy got bored with it at a certain point. I felt like there was a lot of unanswered things with Gertie still. I'm very curious what, if any, cast changes they will make. Now, this was just a news story that came out about an hour ago on people.com, People magazine. The headline reads, Julia Lemagova seeking treatment for PTSD after explosive outbursts on Real Housewives of Miami. Quote, it was a cry for help. This is an article by Dave Quinn. She said, it was very emotional watching the first 2 parts of the reunion. Reliving those moments is really hard, but it also made me think and self-reflect. The beauty, as hard as reality television can be, is that it can be a pathway for personal growth and self-reflection. And if you are honest with yourself and with your audience, it can actually be, believe me or not, quite a healing experience. The season forced her to confront parts of herself she'd long been ashamed of. She said, it helped me to grow as a woman, as a mother, as a wife. She says, holding back tears, I'm still unpacking a lot. I carry a lot of guilt about it and a lot of pain because it can be really hard to look at yourself in the mirror and not like the person you see. But doing that has really helped me see that I need help. The commitment to honesty also means owning the things she's done she's not proud of, including a series of never before seen heated outbursts that were shown in flashbacks on the reunion episodes. The scenes, not shown by producers in the network and edit, came on the heels of a much talked about moment that I just talked about. She remains apologetic about the moment now. There is no excuse for throwing things or screaming. I take full responsibility and accountability for my behavior, and I'm sorry again to Gertie. There's no one to blame for this but me. What I've done, it didn't come out of nowhere. I see now that it came from years of trauma I've never fully faced. It bubbled up. I felt cornered emotionally. I snapped, and that's not okay. What I can see so clearly now is this wasn't just a television meltdown. It was a cry for help that played out on camera. So she's seeking treatment, so I wonder what that means. I mean, listen, Tamra said the same thing on Orange County this season, and I feel like this is potentially one of the worst seasons Tamra has had on this show. And you can, obviously say, well, Teddi Mellencamp was going through her illness, and that obviously affected her. But sometimes, we obviously all have these huge struggles in our lives, and you can choose to be on these shows or you don't have to be. Julia said, I may be a strong woman, but I'm not Wonder Woman. I'm human. Martina showed me a lot of grace when navigating this privately. She's met my honesty and vulnerability with a lot of love. I'm so grateful to her. Yeah, I mean, listen, as a caring, empathetic person, I get what it's like to sometimes look in the mirror and not like what you see. I understand all of that. The not caring side of me says, is this somebody trying to save her job? Is this somebody saying, God, it looked awful? Even the flashbacks where they didn't even show these on, the seasons that they aired on, that made me look awful. And I think sometimes, Julia, I don't know. I don't know. I said this weeks ago that I don't think I need to see Julia back on Real Housewives of Miami. I kind of changed my tune a little bit after part 2 of the reunion. But then now I think about it, I just maybe it's not healthy for her to be here at this big precipice of her life. If she is dealing with PTSD, why throw more flames on an already lit fire? Why do that to yourself if you know that this show brings out the worst in you at times and it reveals things that really harm your relationships? She says that her and Martina are not in an open marriage, an open relationship, but then at times you're like, well, how else would that work? Because Adriana said there were multiple people that she had cheated with. So I'm very curious. Now, even though I like part 3 of the reunion, I wanted more about the Haitian mortician. And that's where great reporting comes into play. Now, I love Bryce Sander. He's one of the chief Housewives correspondent over at Entertainment Tonight. He's been on this show many times, and I really highly recommend going to his Instagram and looking at this interview he did with Adriana Demora from Miami. I'm going to play you a little clip of it right now because this was said in their interview, and I found it absolutely fascinating.
Martina left her because she had an affair when they were living in Paris. Martina left her for good. She had to grovel to Martina for 4 months to forgive her and bring her back. It's a pattern of behavior. That's who she truly is.
The Haitian mortician thing, which she did not deny, which I thought was interesting.
She was in a bad place. She was cheating on Martina with a Haitian mortician. He used to take it to the motel, pay for the motel, bring the champagne, and had to give him a coffee machine as a gift. You forgot about that little bit?
Yeah. How did you learn of that information? Did she confide in you, or is this something you heard and you had to bring to her?
She told me. We were sitting, in the backyard having a glass of wine. And she was just bragging about it. She was just saying how Martina was annoying and boring and Martina wasn't fun because Julia is all about the fun, and how, but she, we had these lovers, and then she's talking about the Haitian lover and the cop lover,
So do you think she presents a version of herself on TV that is not who you know her to be?
Exactly. Yeah. But she fooled even I, because in the beginning of the friendship, I thought she was sweet animal lover, same-sex marriage couple that I wanted to represent. My ideals was they were altruistic and to bring people that represented the community and that were, upstanding people. Not someone that went through her whole life using people, cheating on people, and then twisting things and becoming the victim.
Whoa! Ho! So if you're looking for a part 4 of the Miami reunion, go check out that interview with Bryce Sandra in Entertainment Tonight. You can find it on Instagram. Blew me away. I was like, this is what I needed. So even though I liked the third part of the reunion, I love that interview even more. So I do want to do some sort of episode summing up the entirety of the season. And I think I might have somebody coming on in the next couple of weeks to talk about that and talk about reality shows as a whole, which I'm very excited about. I hope it actually comes through. And guess what, you guys? Guess what I did today? Bucket list item. I interviewed Angie Katsunavis. Yeah, I talked to Angie K today. You'll hear that, I think, on Tuesday's episode. She is on the premiere of Wife Swap, Real Housewives edition, that premieres Tuesday on after Salt Lake City. Now, it was supposed to start with Dr. Wendy's episode. We still don't know if we're going to get that episode or not. It's supposed to be a 4-episode series. If they cut Dr. Wendy's episode, it'll be a 3-episode series. But I talked to Angie K today. And I was very excited. It's a short interview. I could only get so much time, but they were nice enough to give me, time at all. But then I think it was so fun that Angie goes, I want to do your podcast. I want to do like a full interview. So when this comes out, you guys, we got to blanket DM Angie Katsunavis and say she's got to do a full interview. But I wish I could tell you some of the things that I asked her. Because the first part was Wife Swap, and then I was able to like jam in some Salt Lake things that I think are really, really fun. And it reminds me of those moments where I just really love doing this, where I'm just like, I become a kid again, where I was like just giggling the whole time. I mean, which is probably not the most intense, great interview, but it's wish fulfillment in a way. But I think she gives some really good information, and I was really thrilled with it. So make sure you're subscribed to So Bad It's Good next week. We're going to have a great week of shows. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was K-Fed, Kevin Federline and Britney Spears. I did a news story on Tuesday about this, but so much more has come out since then. I think I'm going to do either a whole episode about this, or maybe I'll throw it on the Patreon, because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. And Britney's been posting on Instagram, and, Britney is a pop icon and somebody that a lot of us grew up with, and we have so many amazing memories with her and her music. All I will say is that nobody buy Kevin Federline's book. All the information is already out there now in interviews. Read those if you want, but do not give this man $1 of your money. I always think it's the height of weakness when somebody is not getting money from some sort of, divorce arrangement or custody arrangement. When that money dries up for them, then all of a sudden a tell-all comes out. How are we supposed to really think you're really concerned for your kids and Britney and all of this shit if you did it once you needed money after the well dried up? I just have no respect for that. Now, I also don't agree with Britney bringing up her kids in her Instagram posts. That kind of shit. It's like with Housewives. Meredith Marks, don't bring up the kids. No. I just think, man, keep that shit behind closed doors. We live in a society, I have a whole show about it, that we try to peel back the curtain. We want to see everything. And sometimes as I get older, I don't know if I want to see everything. I don't know if I feel like, because you see how sometimes it ends up, and you see people obviously sometimes struggling with mental health disorders. And I don't know the right way to go about these things sometimes. I'm like, that's a little above my pay grade. I want everybody to be happy and healthy. But at the same time, there are certain things we have to admit about mental health in this country and kind of anywhere, that it's a very real thing. It's a really delicate balance for your brain chemistry and your body chemistry, and just life can be so damn tough. And so your heart goes out to Britney. But I do not like people that do tell-alls. That are, if you're doing a tell-all and it's free, you're like, I'm just giving this to the world. That's one thing. It's like they had this Riyadh comedy festival overseas, I think in Saudi Arabia. And, there's a lot of thing about that government and especially how they treat journalists that are just disgusting. And these comedians were getting paid millions of dollars to go. And now a lot of these comedians, well-respected comedians like Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, all of these people, I fucking love Bill Burr. I mean, Pete Davidson went, like all of these people. And then they come back and they're like, they're just people like us and all, it's like, yeah, I totally agree. They're just people like us. Comedy can be a unifying force. What I don't agree with is that if you were doing this for free out of the goodness of your own heart, I would be able to buy that. You got $1 million. You can talk about us like, oh, we're all just people. We're all just one people and laughter. And it's like the best medicine. It's like you got paid. You got a ridiculous amount of money to do this. And it's not like the people of Saudi Arabia put this together. It was the government of Saudi Arabia. That is very, very different. Wow, I didn't really expect to talk about that. So sorry. Hey, you guys, let's get to the real fun. Let's talk Real Housewives of Orange County. Here we go. Okay, here we are. Season 19, episode 15. This is called Going Dutch because they are traveling to Amsterdam, folks. Now, this is the description DirecTV gives us. Shannon hosts a bridal lunch for Jen. Heather opens up about not wanting to fart. No, Heather opens up about her relationship with her father. Gina and Travis celebrate their family being back together. Tamra and Eddie prep to be empty nesters. The ladies head to Amsterdam and cruise the canals. So that is the episode. I was thinking about this while I was watching. I watched this episode twice. It got a little better on the second time through. But I was thinking 19 seasons of any show, that is a very long time. And the Salt Lake City recap, I pointed this out, we're in season 6 of Salt Lake City. And they've just got such a great group of women right now. They don't all get along, but they don't have to. The way they fight is, I think, hysterical and very entertaining. Then they'll have kind of really serious, more foundational scenes, which I believe, and that kind of really touch my heart. Now, OC, they kind of have all of this, yet the fighting doesn't really work with them. This group of women don't gel. And when fights do happen, you realize it feels like some sort of Groundhog's Day, where you're like, I've seen this again and again and again and again. Because 19 seasons of a show. And yes, I know Tamra wasn't there since season 1. I know she did get put on pause at a certain point. I know Shannon Beador wasn't from the very beginning. But they've been on a very, very long time. Heather Dubrow was on the show, took a break, came back to the show, but still a very, very long time. Emily and Gina at this point have been on, I think, 7 or 8 seasons? And it just feels like it needs a shakeup, like a big shakeup. And I've said this, all season. They're not going to do that, I don't think, with the 20th season because, they gotta keep this train moving. But I think the 21st season of this show, if it makes it to the 21st season, and I see no reason why it wouldn't, it still gets decent ratings. But wouldn't you rather love a show instead of watching a show out of some sort of loyalty for the show? Like that. And by the way, if you love OC, my God, I don't want to yuck your yum. This is just one man's humble opinion who's made his life talking about these shows. But if I could choose to watch something really exciting that I look forward to every week and then choosing to watch Orange County, I'm always going to choose the thing that is the most exciting. But it's like, yeah, I've seen Tamra say something nasty to Shannon so many times that there's no excitement in it for me personally anymore. There's no excitement. Even Emily and Gina, who I think each season have kind of gotten more confident and shared probably a little bit more, gotten more comfortable. But still, I just feel like I know everybody at this point. I know everybody. I know Heather's fancy. I know the champagne bit. I know all of them. And I just thought, oh, this is getting weirdly stale. And I think last season, why it worked was that, when life actually happens, they have the benefit of being on for so long that it energizes the season. When you have Shannon running her car into a house and then she has to answer for that the next season on top of bringing Alexis back, who is dating somebody that Shannon was in a long-term relationship with, Voldemort, Johnny J, John Jansen, that really revitalized Orange County for me. And then you had Katie and Jen, who at the time, those were kind of decent additions in the scope of what we were dealing with. But then this season with bringing Gretchen back, it became stale way too soon. And then Katie Ginella, even though I didn't love that storyline, the fact of just yanking her off of nobody, besides Tamra for one scene, because Katie's not in this episode, which makes me think she's not going to be in the remaining episodes until the reunion. What are we doing? In reality, Shannon, if this was real life and not a reality TV show, Shannon says in this episode, I just don't know if I can, get back there with Tamra. If this is real life, yeah, you've done. I mean, would any of us go back to a relationship where somebody yelled at you, called you a drunk, all of the, and Tamra doesn't seem to want to be friends with Shannon. Shannon doesn't seem to want to be friends with Tamra. That would be the reality of that situation. But the show itself chains this invisible lasso of friendship of well, you got to be friends. It's conflict resolution, but it's conflict resolution if we believe in the resolution. If we're just resolving things because that's a buzzword in Housewives shows now, which I love that it is a buzzword. We've been saying conflict resolution for 6 years on this show. And I'm not saying I started that because I definitely didn't, but now you see all the housewives say it. Conflict resolution. It's not a buzzword. It's something that you actually have to live by. You have to make the audience believe. And with Tamra wanting to leave every flippin' episode, let her leave at a certain point. You either want to collect this big fat paycheck or you don't. And collecting that big fat paycheck, Tamra's one of the only people that have made a serious success out of their side businesses. She's got the Vena CBD line. She's got the 2Ts, the Twats Empire, the Twats Podcasting Empire. I mean, these are real things. So Tamra is sitting very pretty. She has done so well for herself with these side hustles, so much better than most women on any Housewives shows have done. Think about it. Whitney admitted this week on Salt Lake City that she lost over $500,000 on Wild Rose, right? And then Schwartz, I think on his interview with Lala Kent, admitted he lost $600,000 to $700,000 in Schwartz and Sandy's. That's real money, you guys. That's money that takes, a long time to accumulate. And, it doesn't always work out. So Tamra has made this work for her. And when something works for you because of the platform of this show, I think it is the biggest sign of disrespect to threaten to leave every episode. And the women don't even take Tamra seriously. They laugh when she comes back. It's not even a storyline. They just, she'll be back. This is just what she does. What a horrible trademark. This is what she does. She freaks out, says she's doing a healing journey, and then threatens to leave. Come on, ridiculous. So those are my good vibes about OC. Let's finally get into this. Where we left off last week, remember, is Emily was doing the fundraiser, the hoedown, and Slade and Gretchen kind of tried to confront Tamra, and then Gretchen was like, run for your life, bitch. And she looks exactly like an adult JonBenet Ramsey. So you're just like, God, this is just insane. Gretchen sometimes looks like if you put in hey, give me a toddlers and tiaras grown up on AI, a talking head of Gretchen would pop up. Anyways, we start where Shannon Beador is setting up the plates and the cutlery for, I guess, Jenn Pedranti's bridal shower. That's not a bridal shower, but everything's not going well because she has to call the company she got these things from. She's like, this is Shannon Beador calling. You guys made a delivery for this luncheon. Nothing that I ordered. I'm really upset about it. I ordered the blush color wine glasses. All I got was clear. And imagine letting Shannon Beador down. Imagine an angry phone call from Shannon. And Shannon's like, I'm mad. This was $2,000 just for the plates. I mean, did you buy the plates, Shannon? Did you rented these plates or you bought these plates? Because $2,000, no matter how you cut it, we might be spending too much money on Jenn Pedranti. I like Jenn Pedranti, but $2,000? Give me I'll give you some of my plates. I mean, they're not that nice, but $2,000? What are we doing? Anyways, Tamra's getting ready in glam and said, I'm not really sure what we're doing today. Shannon texted us last night. Hi there. Tomorrow is a lunch in the garden celebrating that Jen is getting married. She hasn't registered or anything, so it isn't an official bridal shower. Just bring yourselves. And Gretchen Rossi had a thumbs up emoji and a heart emoji. Heather Dubrow was like, got it! Exclamation point. So Tamra's already suspicious about this. And Tamra's like, that information would have been better a week ago. So I guess it was a last minute thing. This is also very confusing to me because production wants events. So when Housewives throws events, I'm very suspicious about them in the most part because, they're looking for things to film. Anyways, we go over to Gretchen's House of Horrors, and Gretchen tells Slade, who, by the way, Slade, congratulations on growing that Ned Flanders mustache out. Truly, it was the right move. Howdy, neighbor. It's me, Slade Smiley. Gretchen said, oh my God, I was praying about Tamra last night. And Slade's like, did you? And Gretchen's like, yeah. As much as I want to try and move forward, she makes it sometimes nearly impossible. But it's about Jen today, so I hope it doesn't go there. And Slade's like, I'm sure you'll be fine. And if not, I can make up a rumor about a boy band that Tamra is potentially hooked up with. Yeah, do we believe that Gretchen prays for Tamra? I mean, it's always so interesting. I've said this so many times, of bringing the Lord into a housewife show. I always think that is just so bizarre. But also, we're not even talking about the fact that she just said, run for your life, bitch. And now we're going to have a nice luncheon. Anyway, Shannon's still on the phone with you didn't get this right. I'm really bummed about that. Nothing's going Shannon's way for the last couple of years, to be honest. Gretchen's the first one to show up at Shannon's function. And Shannon's like, I haven't seen you since the hoedown. There were words, being exchanged. And Gretchen says, you mean with who? And Jen's like, I thought you and Emily. Because Emily got involved in it too. Remember, Emily was like, this is my hoedown. Gretchen says, coming up and saying hi is not aggressive. Gretchen says, coming up and saying hi is not aggressive. But yeah, run for your life, bitch, is where it does get aggressive. Shannon's like, look, I am never going to be close friends with Tamra again, but I'm not going after her. And I just wish that you could get to that point because some of the girls are saying Gretchen is acting just like Tamra. Shannon thinks Gretchen doesn't need to stoop that low. The world does not need another Tamra, Shannon says. Now, Shannon's painted herself in a little bit of a corner here. I was worried earlier in the season because I'm like, if you are just saying you are never going to be friends with somebody again, that's really hard on a housewife show. But then Tamra, she didn't make it easy on herself by leaving the show so many times. Anyways, Gretchen is like, it's bullshit. I am nothing like her. Shannon says, if you don't stoop to her level, then nobody can say that. The producer asked Gretchen in a talking head, what would be the biggest difference between you and Tamra? And Gretchen's like, can I look at my list to remind me? I made a list. Points in how I'm not like Tamra. And she actually wrote this in a notes app. And it says, I don't have my child calling me a manipulator and a liar. I haven't been sued and lost because of my lies and then almost sued again for another lie. And in parentheses, it says Jim Bellino and Ryan. I didn't reach out to Tamra's ex and try and get dirt on her, Michelle, Slade's ex. I'm not profiting from people's pain, her podcast. I'm not harming or constantly hurting my friends. I'm not disclosing personal information my friends asked me to not talk about, like she did to Shannon about her dad. I don't have several exes coming forward publicly to say I'm a liar and a cheater. Both her exes have said this. I don't call her DM bloggers and try to get them to post horrible things about my castmates. Reality Von Tease. I actually feel bad when I mess up. She doesn't. She has zero remorse and repeats her patterns. And then she wrote at the end, and this is a short list. Gretchen, girl, you're a friend of. Give yourself time to hit all of those. And Gretchen, to be fair, you don't have a podcast. You probably haven't been offered a podcast, so you don't know. But Gretchen tells Shannon she will try harder. But she says it's hard sometimes with her. So Shannon hopes, everything is light, no fights, because today is about Jen. I bet the producers are like, Shannon, shut up. We do not want things to be okay today, right? The ladies get there. Tamra doesn't have any kind of greeting with Gretchen, says that door is closed. Jenn, the guest of honor, sits down and she says, this is probably the nicest thing I'm going to do for my wedding. And she lets us know she has a little bit of a scarlet letter feeling because she's a divorced person. The way I was raised, she says, is you get married one time and it's for the rest of your life. And my parents so proudly put so much into my wedding. And we see her first wedding photo from 2002, her wedding with Will. And she says, and that fell apart. With Ryan, I don't want to do anything like that. Yeah, which would make sense that why you're getting married in a bikini and you're going to have you're going to have rum and cokes and stuff like that. But Jenna goes, this is a bridal shower. We're celebrating the fact that a year later you're still engaged and it's coming up. You're getting married someday. We do not have a date. Jen's going to stretch this out for another couple of seasons, right? But everybody claps to someday, 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 someday. Woo! And then Shannon goes, who knows who's going to throw the luncheon next year if Jen's still getting married? Gina is like, I definitely think that Jenn and Ryan will get married. Ryan's nice. He compliments her all the time. He really over-sexualizes her. I wish he would work on that. But he's really likes her. He thinks she's really hot. Whatever. There's worse problems. Ryan could have gargantuan-sized balls like Travis. So Shannon Beador clinks her glass to make a speech. And she says, I think everyone should go around the table and give Jenn their most sound wedding advice. And everybody's like, uh-oh, well, okay, let's, marriage advice. So Gina points out, we've all been divorced. We've all been divorced here almost. Tamra says, your second wedding? Your marriage, you already know what not to do, Tamra says. Simon and I used to fight like crazy and say mean things to each other. And I'm like, me and Eddie, we will not get mad and say mean things because you really can't take your words back. Which I don't know how true that is because there's a scene with Eddie later where I'm like, I think they do argue. We just don't see it on camera. And congrats to the Orange County editors for not slipping in a flashback of Tamra and Simon fighting because they have that footage. Shannon goes, communication is the key to success in any relationship because I look back on my relationship and we couldn't have those conversations. The littlest arguments would turn into with David. Oh, they're like with David. And she goes, both of my relationships. Jenn says, Emily, I don't know what your first husband was like. And Emily's like, he was a good guy, but Shane is my person. She says, I think maybe that would be my advice. I think everybody has a person, but don't lose yourself, Gina says. That person should be a beautiful compliment to your life. Then it's Gretchen's turn. And Gretchen says, I would say what everybody's saying. Best friends. Our faith is really a very important part of our relationship. Tamra's downing appetizers as Gretchen's speaking and makes a face Ugh. But Gretchen says her faith makes a really big difference. Silence at the table. Heather goes, I think that people will judge your relationship. People will make comments about Ryan, comments about you. Fuck them. Let them. Who cares? Mel Robbins says, let them. You know who you go home to, and that's all that's important. And being stinking, filthy rich like Terry Dubrow. And then Emily goes, Heather, can I ask you a question? Hold on, you guys. We're ripping, the ripcord is being pulled right now. Emily goes, do you fart in front of Terry? And there's just silence from everybody. Silence. You would think this was the biggest, zoinks. And then Heather's like, oh, I don't fart. I don't fart. And they're like, ever? And Heather goes, no, it's not my thing. And then Emily goes, Shannon, did you fart in front of John Jansen? And Shannon goes, no. He would in his sleep all the time, though. He would hotbox me. He would go, Shannon, put your head under the covers, and he wouldn't let me up, and then he'd go, toot, 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 toot. I'm Johnny Jansen farting. Yeah, she says John would pass gas in his sleep, and it would wake her up. It would wake her up. This was probably my favorite part of the entire episode. Because you imagine, because John Jansen, he always just came as such a buttoned up, angry guy that he just holds all his farts in until he can't, until he goes to sleep, and then he just lets it rip. He doesn't even know. Subconsciously, he's just getting all that anger out, just past gassed wind of anger. His farts would even be like, I'm John Jansen. I'm John Jansen. But everybody's laughing. And Gina goes, "The thunder from down under." And somebody says he sleep farts. And Shannon goes, "I probably have a lawsuit filed. It's defamatory." Oh. But Emily says it's really amazing that we can all sit together and have a good time when you can just look at someone and be like, I really cherish my friendship with that person. And maybe we could all go somewhere together and actually enjoy our friendship. I love it if we can look around the table and look at all. I look around the table, I see no friendships. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, maybe a table that we don't see with your actual friends. But now they're like, this is this classic Housewives trope we see of like somebody bringing up something about like, we should go on a trip. Wouldn't it be great to celebrate our friendship? But Shannon says she would love to go somewhere in Europe to see Stella, and Heather would like to go overseas as well. But Shannon's like, my daughter's been to Amsterdam like 3 times. And we flash back to earlier in the season when Stella said she was going to a rave that started at 11 and ended at 7 in the morning, right? God, I would love to see Shannon at a rave. I'd love to see Shannon at Coachella, just in the Sahara tent. But Shannon says that Amsterdam appears to be quite wild. Things might be adding up. But Heather lets us know that her parents lived in Amsterdam for 15 years. And Heather loves it there. It's a beautiful city. They have all these gorgeous canals, great places to fart. No, I'm joking. Heather doesn't do that. And then Heather goes, and pot's legal. So, I mean, me and Gina will be happy because remember, Gina's California sober. She doesn't drink, but she smokes weed every day. I love that Heather says pot's legal on a show where you're in the Real Housewives of Orange County. Do these ladies know that pot is legal in California? I'm about to blow these women's minds right now. You do not have to go to Amsterdam at all. You don't have to go. Like the fact that they're like, and pot's legal. Yeah, you're literally in a state where pot is legal. Give me a break. Then we move to a scene where Heather Dubrow is talking to $1 Million Listings Josh Flagg, who's in a he's getting a bathrobe. He's in a bathrobe at a hotel, laying on the bed. And, she's like, when is the house going to sell? And Josh is like, all it takes is one buyer. Like, by the way, if my real estate, like a multi-million dollar house that they're working on, and I see my real estate person just in a bathrobe on a bed, I would be like, next, I'm taking this to Mauricio Umansky. My God. Now then Terry in the scene is like, it sucks that we can't do this, but it's a money suck, right? And Heather's like, what? We would would we rather be on a construction site for the next 3 years? And Terry's like, yeah, be on a private jet to Paris. Ugh. And then he's like, aren't you guys going on an adventure? And she's like, yeah, girls trip, Amsterdam. Heather says she hasn't been back in 22 years. Terry says, I met your parents for the first time in Amsterdam. And we see pictures of Carol and Conrad, Heather's mom and dad, with 2 of their children as babies in their arms. But they were living there at the time, right? Heather tells us her dad worked for an international company whose headquarters were based in Amsterdam. And when she went to college, her parents ended up moving there, even though she never lived there. She visited all the time, she says. So she has good memories. She says her mom called her the other day, and we get a flashback of her mom on FaceTime, and her mom sent her dad's ashes in like a ratty shopping bag. Like the dad's ashes in a ratty shopping bag. But it's in a velvet thing in the ratty shopping bag. But Terry's like, what are you going to do with your dad's ashes? And Heather says, my mom wrote me a note, as you can imagine. And Terry's like, what? Like, don't snort the ashes kind of thing? And Heather's like, no, like canonize him. And then I was already in my head, just right. I was like, oh no, they're going to go to Amsterdam. She's going to throw it. We're going to have like, what was that? What was the Housewives episode where they threw the ashes in the water and it blew back on all the ladies? Because I was picturing that. It was like they're going to throw the ashes in some Amsterdam canal. A gust of wind was going to pick it up, throw it all, like it was going to dust Heather with her dad's ashes. And then Heather was going to let out the first fart she's ever, let out in her life. But Heather lets us know her mom is so controlling. Heather's like, God forbid I talk about him in a way that she doesn't deem appropriate. I love Heather, but we flash back to a scene with Heather's mom and dad who were on Housewives before. A really handsome looking coupling. But Heather goes, no wonder where I get it from. But she lets Terry know that all these years she has never dumped his ashes anywhere. His happy places were New York, Puerto Vallarta, and Amsterdam. And Terry's like, dump him in the herring ground, like right in front of the house. So that's what Heather is thinking about doing. And Terry says, your dad was like a brilliant, interesting guy. And Heather goes, and difficult, not emotional. She says, my joke about my dad is that our relationship now is exactly the same, which is terrible. That is a terrible joke. Your dad's dad, and you're like, it's the same. But she says he was like the typical corporate dad, gone before we got up and home after we had dinner. And there really wasn't a lot of real communication. And she tells Terry that's what's hard for her, is that she is such a sensitive, emotional person. And Terry's like, yeah, you're the direct opposite of him. And she says, my whole family I'm the opposite of. And then Terry says, well, sometimes they say, you marry your father. Am I unemotional? And Heather just stares at him. And she's like, And Terry's like, you've seen me cry a few times. You've seen me cry a few times. And he goes, the American Express bill. Could you spend too much? She does spend too much, though. She does spend a lot. Spends a lot. So we leave Beverly Hills and we go all the way to Orange County now for our next scene. And we're at Five Vines Wine Bar. And now this is a scene with Gina and Big Ball Travis. And they're getting seated at a table. This is like a Chili's happy hour kind of a vibe. Gina's like, I'll start off with the meat and cheese board. They call it a charcuterie. Yeah. Travis is like, you look very pretty. And Gina's like, I got to keep up with you because you're a very handsome cowboy, babe. Remember last week's episode, he was dressed up as a cowboy and, she thought a lot of ladies were hitting on him. But Gina goes, people said they thought it was so cool to see you have so much fun. And he goes, I did have fun. You needed a night out. It's been a lot. We've been under a lot of stress this year. I'm really thankful and happy that everything seems to be working out. And like everybody's back home and everything's good again. And you remember they were dealing with Travis's son, that Travis's ex was not letting them see the son. We have a flashback scene with Gina and her ex-husband's new lady and said, the son's back. And we hadn't seen him in a month and a half, and all of a sudden he's just back. No words, apparently. There's not a problem anymore. So Gina was saying, yeah, we were waiting every day, which is really insane and intense, but all of a sudden he's back. Gina said Travis could literally not take seeing his child anymore. So he started to volunteer at school during gym time, and I think that really helped trigger Joey to then tell his mom that he wanted to go home. Man, isn't that heartbreaking? Travis had to volunteer at his son's school. But that's nice that they're back together. And Gina says, I see this stress lifted off of you. Now, all the chickens are back in the coop where they belong. Yeah, I call the children chickens in a coop. But Gina says, you're also dealing with things that aren't there. And that's why it's taking time to rebuild. But now, like, it's really happening, Trav. And I'm, like, very happy for you. And Travis is like, yeah, but I can only do it because of our partnership. I can only do it because of you, Gina. It's not fun. It's not easy. Travis seems like a really good guy. Gina goes, I'm just happy that, like, everything worked out. I'm so thankful that they chose to say no. This is our family and we love each other, right? And we deserve to be together. And then Travis like, and it's going to keep getting better. So much better. Gina says moving back in with Travis, she learned how to accept that Travis's situation with him and his ex is never going to go right. Yeah, sometimes you just have to accept that you can only do so much in personal relationships, right? But basically this scene is just them saying that we make a good team together, right? And they're providing a stable, loving, warm environment for their kids, and she's not going to let anyone else take that away from me. Hell yeah, Gina. I wonder if Gina gets like gnarly off camera, like just like I'll cut a bitch kind of a way, right? But this just seems to be like just a good-hearted. But Gina's tearing up. She's like, oh my God, I'm going to cry or something. And then Travis, I shit you not, says, let's talk about my balls or something. Yeah, we got a balls reference. Oh, when in doubt, when the tears come, think about Travis's nutsack. That always makes me happy. Now we have a scene with Jenn and Ryan as Jenn is packing for the Amsterdam trip. She tells Ryan that at Shannon's bridal shower thing that it came out that Heather and Terry went to a sex club in Amsterdam and watched a live sex show. Oh my God. Can you, that job has to be tough enough. And then all of a sudden Terry and Heather are staring at you. That's just, oh God, that's got to make you rethink a lot of decisions. Ryan says, do you think the girls will get along? And she goes, I don't know. Who knows? Hopefully everything will be okay. She says Shannon put a lot of effort into her bridal shower. And she's really not that into bridal things. And she says, we don't even have a date for our wedding set. And he said, well, we did, but then we had to push it because of Dawson's military training. And she wonders in a talking head if, things are going so well with them. If they get married, will it all go to hell? And then it comes up that her ex-husband Will, I guess at the kids' volleyball game, Will came and actually sat with Jenn and the kids really loved that. She says that they're kind of baby stepping the co-parenting thing. And she says if anything happens between her and Ryan, if it doesn't work out, it will be because the pressure of Will, which is really an intense thing to say. And then Ryan's like, hey, I see you're packing a trench coat. I think you need to wear that trench coat and then nothing else. And she goes, maybe I'll send you a little video in Amsterdam. He's like, you're going to send me more than that. And she's like, dirty pig. And I was like, gross. He's like, send me a full sex video in Amsterdam. I want you in there full. Could you imagine that? Shannon accidentally walks in as Jen's doing things to her bits and pieces. And she's like, oh my God. Oh no. What did I see? Oh no. So we get out of that scene and we're with Eddie and Tamra on a nice dinner date. Tamra orders a soda water with lime and cranberry juice, not drinking around Eddie, just around the housewives. She lets Eddie know that she goes, I met with Gina the other day. And we flash back to Gina goes, is there any going forward with Gretchen? And Tamra goes, no. Eddie, no. Eddie's like, middle finger, flip the bird, no. And Gina goes, it's always the people who are in the front row of church that you have to watch out for the most. Gina is right about that. Sometimes there is no hate like Christian love. You know what I'm saying? I've been around a lot of Christians in my life. I grew up Catholic. That is so, so true and weirdly funny at the same time. Eddie tells Tamra, I don't think you need to have that woman in your life. And Tamra says, I don't want her in my life. I think she's toxic. I think she needs help. And I just really don't, And then the waitress comes over. You want to order some food, you guys? Can I get something started? Tamra gets a beet salad. We needed to know that she got a beet salad and the margarita pizza. And then he's like, I'm going to get the cowboy steak. How about that? All right. Get the cowboy for a cowboy. All right. Tamra says, I had a talk with my daughter, Sophia. And she says, I let her know we are fully aware her new boyfriend spent the night. What? Sophia? And then we flash back to her 19-year-old daughter, Sophia, in a scene with Tamra where Tamra's like, is anything going on? And Sophia's like, Mom, what are you, what, Mom? And then Tamra does the finger inside a hole in the hand and goes, eh. Could you imagine if this is your mom doing that's shit I do, not Tamra. And even Sophia says, you're a freak. I agree with Sophia. Tamra says, I am concerned that now that she does have a boyfriend, going to LA is going to be a big fat no. Yeah, especially with the Tamra says, you never know at 19 if a relationship's going to last. You can't take this pivotal moment of your life where you're going to go away to college and go, I can't go now because I have a boyfriend. No, that's not going to work in this household, Tamra says. Yeah. Could you imagine being this dude and Tamra doesn't approve of you? You think Tamra makes some of these ladies' life hell? Imagine what she would do to one of her daughter's boyfriends. Tamra says, so if Sophia doesn't go away, what does that mean for us? And Eddie says, well, I know we talked about moving out of state. Oh, good. Get out of OC. But I don't know how you feel about that, Eddie says. And Tamra goes, sometimes I feel like when we make plans like this, it's like our plans for death. And Eddie goes, God knows how long we're going to live. I agree. Sometimes I feel like I'm dying watching OC. But he points out, he goes, my grandma's 99 years old. I'm probably going to live a long time. Unless I get hit by a bus, which would be like just a horrible, the next scene, Eddie gets hit by a bus. Like, holy shit, the darkest reality show moment of all time. But Eddie laughs. He goes, and Tamra goes, or I kill you because you annoy me when you eat. And Eddie's just smiling and he's crunching his salad. And Tamra goes, don't chew or whistle around me. And he goes, you don't like it? Put some earplugs in. That's not always a good way to react. And Tamra goes, I'm not an asshole. And Eddie looks at her like, come on. And Tamra goes, you're the asshole. And Eddie goes, do you think we have a problem? And she goes, I think that our problem is we don't communicate. And then it all explodes all at once. I wonder who does the exploding. Tamra says, I always say we have one good fight about every 6 months. And Eddie goes, the way you talk to me is what sets me off. Usually you're drunk. And that makes you come at me. And Tamra goes, do you think I have a drinking problem? Yes, Tamra, we all think you have a drinking problem. You excuse it by calling Shannon she having a drinking problem. Eddie says, for our relationship purposes, you should never drink. You should be able to come to me and talk to me about what's hurting you. And Tamra goes, no, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. In a talking head, she says, I tend to pull away when things are hurting me, and Eddie gets really annoyed with it. He's like, just ask me for help. And I'm like, I don't want anybody to help me. I've always been like that. And Eddie goes, I'm not like that either. I come from the School of Hard Knocks too. Eddie graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. I went to ASU. Eddie's like, I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. But Eddie goes, it's not good. It's not good. I live my life about improving everything I do. And Tamra's like, you live your life as an only child. And Eddie goes, oh, here we go. And then Tamra goes, and then Eddie goes, there's that laugh. And then Eddie goes, Eddie does a worse impersonation of Tamra than I do. And then Tamra goes, God, I hate you. And he goes, I love you. I love you. And she goes, I hate you too. And that's it. But what a revelatory scene in some ways, because once again, her therapy is not brought up at all. And I really would question if she's going to therapy, because her immediately negating what Eddie said of like, well, I'm never going to do that. I've never been like that. I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to come to you with my problems, and see how that's worked out for you. It has not made you able to fully blossom in relationships of yours, right? And so it's not worked. Why not try something different? Why not go in that uncomfortable space that feels wrong? And even Eddie is just like, Eddie seems, like, I thought this was really interesting and shows that, I'm sure there's a lot of shit that goes on in their relationship that we are just not aware of at all. So I thought this scene was actually kind of refreshing in a sense. And I also find it interesting of like Shannon, for better or worse, and I don't think it's her choice, we really got into her relationships. Now, Tamra, we did get into the Simon relationship back in the day. And it's interesting. It's like, when I talk about Kyle Richards, when, those beginning seasons of Beverly Hills, she shared so much. And being on the show for so long, it's almost kind of insulated her from having to share even more about her life. And Tamra's in this interesting position where she really seems to get to pick and choose what she wants to share. And the relationship aspect of this, she doesn't seem to usually want to share. So I thought this scene was refreshing, but I also thought, man, you also got to give it up to the people on this show that do share their relationships. Because Shannon didn't want to share the John Jansen shit. Okay, so it's Amsterdam time. The ladies arrive at the airport. Shannon immediately upon entering the airport is, my toe is bleeding. My toe. Oh my God, my toe. Let's go to Amsterdam, she screams. And then we walk ourselves into a giant JetBlue commercial. Like, legitimately, this was a commercial. They get into their like little first class seats and they're like, wow, you can charge your phone by laying it right here. Look at this movie selection. May I take a champagne? Wow, this is so much nicer than home. And then we see the JetBlue logo. I was like, wow, we just got advertised to. I see what you're doing. I don't know if I like it. And then it says 13 hours later, they land, and Heather, of course, recognizes the shopping streets. I know retail. Shannon lets us know, this is a city of canals. I grew up on boats. And everybody's just like, yeah, we heard it, Shannon. And so I arranged a canal boat trip. Shannon gets out of the Sprinter van at the hotel and almost gets run over by bikes. Of course she does. Shannon gets to her room and we see her unleash her bandaged foot. Like, man, even if you're into like feet, I don't think this would do anything for you. She was like, ow! And we just get, it's just gross. The ladies are getting ready. They get down into the lobby. All the ladies' outfits are redonkulous. There's leather. There's lace. Tamra's wearing some sort of hot pants where I see way too much of her everything. They get on this canal boat. They go past Heather's parents' place. And she's talking to the talking head about her dad. And she's like, when you move to a new place, you get to start over. And that's what I think my dad did. And he was happy, maybe because he felt freer. And I thought that was such an interesting little moment. We are finding more about Heather and her family, and I do find that refreshing as well. I'm trying to find the positives here. Like I said, I don't have problems with these ladies individually for the most part. I just don't think they gel collectively. Then Heather on the canal, I'm like, okay, now we're going to start a scene. She's like, it was so interesting. At the airport, you guys were in one of those little shops. There was a Build-A-Bear thing, and I was like, are they building a bear? And then Emily's like, well, I just took my kid to that the other day. You know why I did it? Because Luke's therapist. And I'm like, uh-oh, God, I thought we were going to go an episode without talking about Luke, Emily's son. But Luke's therapist suggested making a bear. And then I did the voice. So when I'm not home, he can feel like Emily's talking to him through the bear. Hey, this is Emily the bear. What's up, Luke? I'm talking about you as a storyline this season. Luke, I'm willing to take that bear off your hand for a cool $200 for my reality show museum. Hey, Luke, it's me, Emily. I'm wearing leather in Amsterdam. I'm going to the red light district. Emily says the best thing about having an actual diagnosis of Luke is that the diagnosis that comes with recommendations and a treatment plan, and that's the roadmap. This is everything going on with Luke, and this is how you help him, and this is how you make it better, and that's what I need. Oh, man, I wonder if she's going to regret this storyline one day, because, I don't know, it just feels so personal. Tamra says, I Googled things in Amsterdam, and I found something that we could do. And you go to this place, Tamra says, and you get this penis, and then you bedazzle it. And everybody's like, ooh, what? Are you kidding? And Shannon's like, I can still find real penises. Have you seen the Love Hotel? I don't think Shannon can find real penises. But Gina's like, I want to go to the dispensary. I don't want to make bedazzled penises. And then they ask Gretchen, are you going to partake? And Gretchen's like, I don't think I want to partake. Yeah, Gretchen wouldn't make the voodoo doll earlier in New Orleans. She won't make the bedazzled penis. What good are you? Come on. So they get off this boat, or they're like pulled up to get off. And Emily all of a sudden is like, Shannon, let me ask you a question because you always talk about your boundaries. And Shannon's like, oh, she kind of whips her head like, me? And Emily goes, do you think Tamra was being shady when she was asking about your dad? And I'm like, God, we're going back to like 4 episodes ago when they were at that vineyard. Like, I hate these kind of forced conversations about just to keep storyline. Like, storyline should just be happening. Like, they should just be talking and we pick up on whatever happens. This is so forced to me. So they're like, okay. And Emily's like, Tamra, were you being shady? And Tamra's like, no. And we flashed to 2 hours earlier when Gina is talking about this. He's like, I think in Temecula, Tamra kind of over-inserted herself, because in Temecula, Tamra had said, didn't you say your dad had a drinking problem when you were growing up? And Shannon said, I don't want to hurt my father. Emily, in this flashback scene from 2 hours ago, says, I get it. I think she was just trying to involve herself in the conversation about someone. And Heather's like, so you think Shannon's blowing it out of proportion? And Emily goes, yes. How is it blowing it out of proportion if Shannon hasn't brought it up in a couple of episodes? Like, I just don't, like, the present fight we're dealing with is Gretchen and Tamra. We're going backwards. But Shannon goes, I do think it was a dig. And Emily goes, I feel like maybe her statement was just trying to be compassionate. And Emily goes, can I ask you a question, though? When she says that she's sorry about bringing up your dad, are you able to forgive? And Shannon goes, no. Gretchen says, anytime that I get involved in any conversation that regards Tamra, somehow I get accused of being aggressive, being this, being that. So I'm definitely wanting just to sit this one out because we see Gretchen saying nothing. And Shannon goes, you can say things and go, oh, no, I was mad. Oh, no. And Tamra goes, I don't do this, because Shannon did a big hand motion, but Tamra does do wild hand motions. And Shannon goes, but you did. And Tamra goes, yeah, but I can apologize. You can't. You can't move forward. That's bullshit. Yeah, see, I think Tamra is conflating the word apology and actually the feeling of wanting to apologize. You can say a word and it can have still no meaning. And I feel like it's empty words with Tamra. Yes, you can say it because you know that's what's expected of you, but then you get it doesn't hold any weight. And then Shannon's like, you know what? If I ever called you the C word 18 times at a dinner table, and then Tamra goes, call me it. Are you see you next Tuesday? And they bleep out the word C-U-N-T. Are you and she goes, are you see you next Tuesday? And everybody's like, stop. Jen's like, stop. Don't go back. And Tamra goes, I'm asking you. And Jen goes, don't pull your shit with me. And Tamra goes, I'm not talking to you, Jen. Relax. God. And it's like tense music, and we cut to commercial. Sorry, Tamra saying, are you a see you next Tuesday? Are you a see you next Tuesday? Is not entertaining to me. It is so stale. Emily says, I'm just trying. Can we just try to decipher? And Heather's like, can you highlight when you want to be an asshole, Tamra? And Tamra goes, I don't want to be. I don't want to. And Heather's like, I'm joking. Remember, Heather's the funny one. But Tamra goes, I will highlight it with a yellow marker when I want to be. And Shannon just is staring at Tamra. Shannon doesn't continue it at all. And now Heather's going to take Gina and they're going to get a blunt. They're going to smoke weed. And I think Shannon goes with them as well. And the rest of these ladies are going to go vajazzle dildos. Yeah, vajazzle dildos. You heard it here first, folks. So the ladies are walking around the streets and they're getting catcalled by the guys, the Amsterdam men. And they're like, Gina's like, I think they think we're women for hire. Yeah. Emily's like, yeah. And this is our madam right here. And Shannon's like in between them. And then we're asking important questions. Jen asks, Shannon, do you have a vibrator? And Shannon goes, no, I don't want one. I don't want one. In the Love Hotel, Countess Luann got pulled over by customs and they opened it up. And Emily's like, oh my God. And Shannon's like, it was her vibrator. And she goes, and I said to the customs, un vibrador? I said un vibrador. Money can't buy a class. Vibrators are learned, my friend. Yeah. Okay, so now Shannon, Gina, and Heather Dubrow are at the marijuana store. Shannon wants a space cake. She wants to eat it because she doesn't want to get any lung damage. I can't get lung damage for this beautiful voice. So she gets a muffin, you guys. Shannon says, after the boat cruise, I could use a little something to take the edge off. And the space cake she has is 33 milligrams. Now, if you listen to my Salt Lake episode yesterday, I told you a story about going to a concert this week. I am not a big weed guy. And I'm not a big edible guy, not a big weed guy. There was a sponsor on my show, IndaCloud, that sent me a bunch of stuff. Rebecca said, we went to this concert. She's obviously not partaking in anything, but she goes, why don't you take an edible? And just, have a good night. You've been stressed. Like, let's have fun, go have fun. And so I was like, okay. And I opened this thing and it was a bunch of like gummies. And so I took one. I took one thing that was like 5 milligrams, right? And 5 milligrams, when I've done that in the past, that will, do the job. And I get like weirdly paranoid. I'm not good on weed, right? I don't know why I thought it would be amazing. And I took it. And guys, I was on the face of the sun. I was in outer space. And Rebecca still reminds me every day. She's like, you were really a lot of fun. And I was just like, do you want me to be on edibles every day of my life? I can't do that mentally. But she was like, you were a lot. That's sometimes the worst thing you want to hear from your partner of like, God, you were so much better. You were so much better with the drugs. But I came home. It was 20 milligrams, you guys, 20 milligrams. That's way too much. No wonder. I still feel it in my bones right now. But yeah, Shannon's, it's 33 milligrams. And Gina's like, you can't eat that whole thing. You'll be like Ryan Bailey at a concert. You'll be licking the floor. And Heather's like, just take a bite. Just eat an eighth. So Shannon starts kind of taking nibbles on it. Now the other ladies are at this place called Lenny's. and we meet Lenny, the owner. It's like, come inside. Welcome in. Yes, come inside. And there's a table. We see all of these bedazzled and like puppetry looking dildos. And she's like, you make your own dick. You make your own dick here at Lenny's. Yes, dick make. You put whatever you want on it. It's like a build your own pizza place. It's like Build-A-Bear for your son, Emily, but it's with a dick. And then the mold of this penis, they're like, is this like your boyfriend? Is this your husband? Did you have fun with this? And Lenny's like, yes, of course. Of course I had fun with this. Emily's like, if you rub it, do you get good luck? I don't know, you guys. So they're decorating the penises. Then Emily goes, we're decorating. We're decorating, you guys. I hope they had fun, because I sure am not having fun. I don't know. But Tamra's like, do you really think about the color here? And then Emily goes, oh, Jen, but why is Emily always the one in scenes asking questions? Hey, she goes, Jen, how's your vagina doing? And we flash back to earlier in the season where Jen let us know in New Orleans that her vagina doesn't work. And Gina's like, your vagina's broken? And she's like, yeah, I had a surgery. And so right now I would take any position. Literally, it's just the tip right now. That's all I can take. But Jen now in this scene goes, everything's good. And Emily goes, wait, did you have it tightened? And she goes, I did the whole thing. I did the exterior, interior, pelvic floor. I got a wash, a wax. I had them buff it out. I got fully detailed. Emily goes, what do you mean by exterior? And she goes, I cut off. They're gone. And I'm like, what the fuck? Rebecca was watching this with me and she said something that I can't repeat here. But I was like, Rebecca, what? It had something to do with curtains. And I just, it's too much. But Tamra goes, doesn't that like mess with like sensitivity and stuff? I love Tamra's asking questions, but I'm like secretly, she's like, should I look into this? But Jen goes, oh no, actually I think it makes it more sensitive. And it also makes it look prettier. In a talking head, she goes, listen, I tested this man. And when she said that, I was like, you're testing me right now. But she goes, by even having a broken vagina and he still sticks around. This guy is truly a saint. She goes, this man is a saint, which that's true. In religion, they usually gave sainthood to men that would only sleep with women with broken vaginas. That's in the Bible, folks. I'm telling you, that's how they determined saints in the old days. But she goes, it's better now. Thank God. I really did get nervous because, and Emily goes, yeah, you were having problems afterwards, right? And she goes, I could not put anything in it. I couldn't put my keys, my wallet, my couch, anything. And she goes, but now we're good. We're good. And then she points at the dildo and she goes, this would fit. And I'm like, oh God, please don't use this in a scene with Ryan FaceTiming him later. Just please. We go back to the weed people and, Stony Baloney's, and they're asking Shannon how she feels after the boat ride. And Shannon's like, the thing is, my friendship's exhausting. I have no interest in getting closer to Tamra at all. So she says this repeatedly. Heather goes, here's the question. So can I say the boundaries are an issue for you? And you always talk about that part. What keeps baffling me, which I don't understand, is the Jen of it all. Because Jen is still friends with Alexis. And Shannon goes, is she? And we flash back to Jen, and she's being asked the same thing and goes, I don't really talk to Alexis that much, but I do genuinely like Alexis. And Tamra's like, are you going to her wedding? And she goes, well, yeah, she sent me the save the date, but last time I was with Shannon asked me not to go. And we flash back to Shannon going, are you going to go? And Jen goes, probably not, Shannon, because I know what it would do to us. And Shannon goes, thank you. We go back into the scene and Shannon goes, she said she got the save the date card, but she is not going to the wedding. And Heather goes, I think Tamra told me they were still speaking though. And Shannon's like, well, I'll have to talk to her about it. She says you don't want to dictate to other people who they can and can't be friends with, but those choices affect how close I'm going to get to Jen. I don't want to spend time with you thinking, oh, when's the last time she saw Alexis? And John, I don't want to think about that. That's not crazy, you guys. I'm sorry. That's normal. Now, does it help the show? Probably not. Emily tells Jenn, it's really not fair for you to have to cut off a friendship, which is so hypocritical of Emily because isn't she the person saying, like, you can't hang around with Katie and Tamra? How dare you hang out with Katie? Like, I'm so confused. And I think that's one of the signs of a housewife, too, is you have to be hypocritical. But Jenn says, I'm not cutting off Alexis. I don't subscribe to you hate her, so I'm going to hate her. And Emily goes, can I ask you a question? Yeah, you're the only one asking questions in this show. Emily says, your bridal thing, I felt like you weren't really into it. And Jenn says, I appreciate it, but that's not my thing at all. Emily said, let me ask you something. If it wasn't something that you particularly wanted, do you feel like Shannon did it for you, or do you think she did it for herself? And Tamra goes, oh, she did it for herself. Like, this is so dumb, you guys. I didn't really get that sense. Like, all of you weirdos throw weird parties for people and for each other. But Jenn goes, no, she didn't do that for herself, Tamra. And Tamra in a talking head goes, I know what Shannon's doing. She wants everybody to know what a great friend she is to Jenn. And then Emily in a talking head goes, I gave you a bridal shower. I'm a good person. Tamra says she's holding on to her because she wants to get back at me. The same reason she's doing it with Gretchen. No, I just think she genuinely doesn't like you and doesn't want to keep giving you chances. And so therefore she has to film with other people and try to like work on other relationships, just like she did with Gina and Emily the first time you did this, or not the first time, like the third time you did this a couple seasons ago. And I think it's very, there's a narcissism about this with Tamra saying this. And I'm bummed that Emily jumped in. I feel like this is like you're trying to make something out of nothing. She spent a bunch of thousands of dollars on basically a nice thing. And Tamra's like, she doesn't want to get close to anybody. She wouldn't get close to Emily. But Jenn says, this is the closest I've ever been to her. And Tamra's like, well, because of me. Doesn't that make you wonder at all? Huh? We go back to Shannon. They're like, how's your space cake going? And Shannon goes, I should put a timer on 40 minutes to an hour and 10, he said. And Heather's like, she took 2 bites. And Shannon's like, oh my God, am I already stoned? That's when that's there. And then Gina goes, you're the funniest person I ever met, Shannon Beador, I swear. Which Heather's right next to her. Heather's got to take great offense. I take classes at the Groundlings. Anyways, now Heather lights up a joint. Heather kind of looks cool with a spliff. Heather has a full joint lit. We really have come a long way on Bravo. Now, Gretchen says, can I ask you a question? Gina, I don't know if there's any moving forward with Tamra and I. Do you see that? And Gina's like, yeah, I see that. I think when you left a Western party, everyone was upset about you going with Slade and what happened in the aftermath. And by the way, during this conversation, Shannon keeps nibbling at her space cake. Gretchen is like, but you understand why we went with Slade. And Heather goes, no, I don't understand. And Gretchen says, we didn't come in like aggressive. And Gina goes, that's fine, but all like, listen, I'm not talking about, and Heather goes, I don't agree with that. Now we cut back to Emily. They're talking about the same thing. Why would Slade jump in? And they're like, he loves to jump in, Slade. He loves to jump in. I think sometimes Tamra brings out the worst in Emily, Back to Gina. Gina goes, I feel, Gretchen, you have reduced yourself to a place that you should not go. And Gretchen says, unfortunately with Tamra, I have just learned that fighting fire with her is the best way to handle that. Do you really feel that way? And Heather's like, that is not the way. And Heather goes, all you do is poke at. Heather acts exactly like Heather when she's high, which then led me to believe, is Heather high all the time? Shannon, by the way, is just like in space. She's like, oh my God, where am I right now? And she keeps eating the space cake. But they're just saying, we've had this conversation. Gretchen says, I've tried everything that you can try under the sun. The only thing that Tamra responds to is strength. Pray it away, Gretchen. Heather says, that is the worst advice ever. This is like fighting fire with lighter fluid. So then we cut back to the Dick's place. They're like, thanks, Lenny, for the Dicks. And Lenny's like, you like it? You like it? Take your dicks with you that look like weird Muppets. So we end our final scene at this restaurant. Shannon's a space case. She can barely walk up the steps. She is high as a kite. She's putting the wine glass to her eye, and she's like, Heather, look at me. And Heather's putting her wine glass up to her eye. The dick decorators, they come in. They put their dicks on the table, and Tamra's like, all these ladies love to share dicks anyways. And Gina's like, yeah, Shannon now shares a penis with Alexis, and Gretchen got that penis from Joe Della Rosa. And Heather asked the ladies, did you guys have fun? And Shannon goes, I had a bite of a muffin. And I was like, is Shannon trashed? And she, obviously Shannon is just space case, but it's actually making me laugh. And Shannon goes, I fell out of the van. And then we flash to Shannon falling out of the van, literally falling out of the van. And so the waiter comes to take their orders, and Emily's like, put your dicks away. And they're just being a mess, you guys. My name is Sil, and I will be your waiter for tonight. Ladies, what would you like to drink? Jen does an extra dirty martini. And Shannon goes, she's extra dirty like her martini. Like her martini. And then they're doing like sound effects where, sound is echoing. And then we flash back to Shannon on a phone with Stella. Stella, what happens if you do drugs? And Stella goes, you die. You die, that's right. And Shannon's having a come to Jesus moment, struggle bus moment when you realize you're way too high. The waiter's like, this island in Amsterdam is a Mediterranean experience, a culinary dining experience. All of our dishes are meant to be shared. And so Heather's getting the bread, tuna tartare, zucchini, margarita pizza, meatballs, fish, ribeye, lamb chops, and a lot of food. And Emily's like, that's what happens when you take him to a pot place. So they're all being nice. Oh, God. Shannon is awesome to watch high. And Shannon's hair is ratty. And she's like, there might be honey in it from the plane. Emily says, I love that Shannon ate a space cake because I feel like Shannon is a space cake. How dare you, Emily? How dare you? Anyway, Shannon's like, I dropped my barrette. I got to get it under the table. And Shannon's like getting under the table. And then Tamra gets under the table, shining a flashlight to find her barrette. And they're like, guys, get... and then Shannon comes up from under the table. And then all of a sudden, Tamra gets in between Shannon's legs under the table. And Gretchen's like, are you going down on Shannon? And Gretchen says, that's how much she wants to be back with Shannon. She's going down on Shannon. Gretchen, that is not very godly. But Shannon's loving it. Oh my God, Tamra! Oh my God, you found my barrette! Like, and Tamra's grabbing Shannon's boobs, like their hands coming up from underneath the table. And then Shannon goes, she's trying to get a bite of my muffin. She's trying to get a bite of my muffin. Heather says, if all it takes is space cakes to get Shannon and Tamra back together, please buy a dozen. And Shannon in a talking head says, a squeeze on the breast is much better than being yelled at. For sure. For sure. And then Tamra says, we have to get to the red light district at a certain time. We have a window of opportunity. And the red light district, obviously a very famous part of Amsterdam. Rebecca and I went to Amsterdam we walked by the red light district during the day. We didn't go at night, but it's very crowded. And we find like the ladies actually then cut to the ladies have their own windows on the red light district. Imagine being an American tourist in Amsterdam and you're a fan of the Housewives. You have no clue they're in town. You decide with your partner, like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to go to the red light district and just see what's up? And then you all of a sudden walk past a window and it's Shannon Beador going, look at my tatas. Look at these. Woo! Wouldn't you freak the fuck out? And by the way, there's got to be people that this happened to. And if you are one of those people, please email me at sobadit'sgoodwithryanbailey@gmail.com. I would love to interview you on this show. Shannon says, when everyone's getting along, there's nothing better. And so everybody says this is a good sign. Jen says we may make it out of Amsterdam alive. And then everything gets wonky. And it says 12 hours later, next time on The Real Housewives of Orange County. And all hell is breaking loose. Jen is yelling at Gina. And Emily's yelling at Gina. and Tamra saying, I don't talk about you. You're not relevant in regards to Gretchen. And then some scene where somebody's asking Tamra, do you not think she's a good person? And Gina going, don't back me into a corner here. I'm genuinely confused about this. And then Gina telling Emily, once you see stuff like this, you got to call it out. You can't ignore it. It's not okay. And then Gina in another scene going, I don't want this to be true. And then Emily talking to Heather saying, where do we go from here? And then Heather crying going, I don't understand. And then Shannon going, I just want this to be a mistake. And so something happens that tears everybody apart and makes Heather cry. My prediction, like I predicted a month ago, I think this is something to do with Gretchen's posts about anti-LGBTQ. I could be wrong. That's my prediction. So we will find out next week on an all-new, exciting episode of Orange County. Folks, we made it to the end of the week. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. You hit the weekend. Eat something good. Drink something great. Tell people you love them. I'm telling myself this. Try to be in the moment and appreciate the moment because we only have one of these. Everything goes by so fast. But my God, thank you for being here whenever, wherever you're listening. We had a bunch of great shows this week. I'll be on the Patreon this weekend. Always subscribe. You never know when I'm going to drop a surprise episode. And that's it. Bye, guys. Thank God OC is over.